Oh, let's talk about another recent pull. The triple logoman of LeBron, Luca, Curry got pulled recently, right?
Yeah.
What was your first thought that came to your mind when you heard that news?
Why wasn't it me? But that sounds selfish, and to do it back-to-back years would be pretty ridiculous, but I'm not the biggest LeBron fan, and,
Yeah.
that sounds terrible coming from a
Mhm.
guy who profited from, one of his largest cards, but, I'm a huge Curry and huge Luka fan, so,
Ah.
that would have been a pretty sweet card to, even be a third owner of as well.
All right, I did have this in my show notes or my little question thing. Let's do it right now. Start, bench, cut. Le LeBron on the Cavs, LeBron on the Heat, LeBron on the Lakers. Those 3 that were on that card. Start, bench, and cut.
Oh man, I'm gonna go start LeBron on the original Cavs teams,
Original, yeah.
original Cavs, and then I'm gonna cut the Miami Heat because when he
Mm.
went to South Beach, I couldn't stand how he did it. So, and anything on the Heat, I'm not a huge fan of. That said, I'll put him on the bench on the Lakers because I still
Mhm.
respect the hell out of the player that he is. I mean, the guy is
Yeah,
phenomenal. There's no doubt how amazing he is, right? And
right.
unbelievable athlete, unbelievable basketball player. I'm just a Jordan guy, so it's one of those things that I always struggle with. But he's unbelievable.
So it's interesting because you mentioned that you were you grew up your whole life in New York, and I grew up in there as a child, and I thought maybe you would be a Knicks fan, and if you are, like, it didn't matter what city you were in, like, I guess maybe except Utah, but, like, if you were from the state of Utah, you might have really hated Jordan, but even, like, the people who he would beat, it just we all loved Jordan. He was just so charismatic and electrifying and athletic and amazing. I mean, he had that riz, which is what I mentioned in one of my earlier episodes. So but I can understand why you don't like the Heat. I mean, the Knicks and Heat in the '90s, just such rock fights. I mean, we're talking Pat Riley defecting, right? Like Stan Van Gundy hanging from Alonzo Mourning's leg, Charlie Ward flipping, body slam by PJ Ward or the vice versa. I don't even know. It was so crazy.
That's when basketball was great, right? Well, even when, at least I am a diehard Knicks fan, but like you
Yeah,
said, I mean, Michael Jordan was just transcendent,
yeah,
right? You turn on the TV, you weren't turning it off when that guy was on the screen, right? And as much as I
right.
love the Knicks, he was my favorite player, and it
Yeah,
still is.
no, absolutely. Oh, I mean, okay. I'm not gonna go down the Jordan rabbit hole. I could, and I feel like we would have a lot of fun doing it. But being at the about the 45-minute mark, I want to be respectful of your time and I guess I think the wash is done now. But again, I'm not gonna change it to dry. I wanted to before we go to King of Collectibles, and I think it's a good segue because my family loved the show. They really did. So I wanted to ask you, and maybe this is about the point where I'll cut it into the second part because I don't want to have like an hour and a half or an hour long episode. But going to, all right, here's how I'll say it. In past episodes, I would ask questions to ChatGPT. Hey, help me out with a question. Just like a fun little thing. I soon found out I can't do that for every guest, and it would just be it's not that fun. Okay, so um I asked my kids. I asked them, "Hey," I first of all, I told them, like, that guy on TV? I'm gonna interview him, or I'm gonna have a chat with him, and he's gonna be on my podcast." First, they were like, "When did you have a podcast?" I was like, "Oh yeah, I forgot to tell you about that, because I do it when you guys go to sleep."
Right.
Um, but I said, "Yeah, I'm gonna be able to talk to him," and they were like, "I want to stay up. I want to stay up." I was like, "No, you got to go to bed. You got all that." And so I asked them, "Can you give me a question that you would like to ask Mr. Hickey?" So here
Love
we
it.
go. This is a verbatim, and I wrote it down. My older son, who's 10. This is a verbatim how we asked it, and then we'll go to my other son after you answer this question. How emotionally connected were you to the card, and were you proud that you pulled it? congratulations on pulling the card. How long did you have the card before you sold it?
What a great question. All right, so let's start with the first part. Was I emotionally connected? I would say for about, I don't know, 48 hours,
Hmm.
right? That I felt like, wow, this is life changing. This thing has been talked about forever, or not forever, but for a long
Yeah,
time. Like the
yeah,
chase
yeah,
was on, right? So
yep,
I
yep.
felt very emotionally connected to it. Sorry, what was the second part of the question?
I mean, definitely hobby forever, right? I mean, time
Oh,
flies
yeah.
so fast in the hobby. It's like a week can feel like a month, and and so on. So he asked, "How emotionally connected were you to the card? Were you proud that you pulled it?" And then he's such my son. Like, congratulations on pulling the card. He wanted me to say that to you.
So polite.
Congratulations on pulling the card. How long did you have it before you sold it? So it's like a three-parter question. Were you proud that you pulled it? I imagine yes, but in your own words. And then how long did you have it before you sold it?
Yeah, like you said, as it relates to the hobby, I was proud to be, part of what I think is hobby history right now,
Hmm.
just based
Yeah.
upon the chase and the story behind it. So yeah, I was extremely proud of that. And your son is extremely polite, and I love that. So thank you to him for asking that question. And how long did it? So it was probably from May 6th, the original poll.
Mhm.
We didn't have it in our hands, right?
Mhm.
Ultimately, we got to make a trip down to Florida, get to see the card, held it in our hands for, I don't know, maybe we spent an hour with the card.
Oh.
And then it ultimately went off to Mr. Golden on his private jet. And then we saw it again during filming of the show, but that was pretty much about it. So not a lot of time spent with the card itself.
Interesting. So the show made it seem like it was in your possession the entire time and you brought it to Mr. Golden, but the way you're maybe saying it, he had it and they kind of edited it so it looked like you guys were bringing it into his office.
Yeah. So at that point, we had conversations,
Okay.
right? And I wouldn't say it was technically, he was not the, outright owner of the card yet.
Got it. Got it.
But logistically, there were some things, ultimately that we had to do to get it in a safe place because we didn't want to have the responsibility between the three, owners of the card. Oh, you keep it at your house, and
Can't hit him
in
that. Yeah.
Utah, or
Yeah.
King Mitts,
Well,
you keep it in Las Vegas, or Jason, you keep it in New York. So
right.
there were some logistical things, and when lawyers get involved, that's it's never fun.
Right. So almost like putting it in a safe hand, a very trusted individual who was able to hold it for you until it was time to, that's excellent. That is awesome.
Correct.
And again, congratulations. You did answer. So let's go from the politeness of my older son to maybe the straight to the matter. I won't say impolite because he's not. He's very polite as well. But my younger son, who's 8, his question or questions was, who bought the card and what other big cards have you pulled in your life? I mean, maybe he just wasn't impressed by a a triple logo man. He just wants to know what else have you pulled. Like it's a very it's a younger question, I guess. But do you know who bought the card and other notable big pulls that you've had?
Yeah, I would. So we don't know who bought the card.
Okay.
We had, inquired about that, and there's NDAs associated there with,
Yep.
through the buyer and Golden. So we don't know. During the show, there was a little bit of a hint of like the phone call and, hey, I'm in the club. Can you put in my bid? And people who know the industry may know, maybe it's one of a, couple people, but
Hmm.
I'm really interested to find out if it ever comes to market again on
Right.
who actually owns it. That'll be pretty cool. As far as, other big polls, I had a last year, I had a pretty good run of some large Trevor Lawrence polls that,
Mm.
I've since moved on from and have,
Hmm.
profited pretty decently from, especially when, Trevor, once they were in the playoffs,
Hmm.
are doing some good things. I would say more of my larger ones were on the football side of the house, last year. And then this year I've had a pretty good run of some big Steph Curry pulls out of Flawless, which
Nice.
has been fantastic. A couple good Jason Tatum pulls.
Mm.
Um, no additional, logo men cards that I can speak of in 2023. Although I've been pretty much buying into a lot of flawless breaks and trying to get the Celtics in a PYT to get the Tatum
Oh, yeah.
logo man autograph, which would be pretty cool. Even though I'm a Knicks fan, I am a fan of Jason Tatum.
He is very good too. No, absolutely. He's I see his Instagram feed and he's, showing his son. I think his name is Deuce or something like
Yeah,
that. And, he's just such a good, he's a good one in the hobby, in the NBA, because as we know, I mean, we won't mention those names again, but there are definitely some people who are getting some hot water recently. So it's nice to have, we like to think, in our hobby and the collecting the cards, like this hero worship, we want to believe that these folks are decent, but of course we are all human, and they are very young, and people do make mistakes. So
yeah. He seems like a great dad, but like you said, I mean, you get all that money in your hands at a young age. I mean, I've made plenty of mistakes in my life. I can't imagine being that young, having that type of money.
right, it's almost like I was too poor to get into super big trouble. I mean, it's a joke, but it's almost like the more money you have, you can just exacerbate your problems. Like you can just really get into trouble because you can afford to do some really crazy things. But no,
Yeah,
yes, as someone in his 20s and even 30s, hopefully not too much in my 40s, but I mean, yeah, when you're young, you just mistakes are just part of growing up, I guess.
it's true.
So, okay. So here's the thing about let's transition from the troubles of NBA players to my kids loved the Netflix show King of Collectibles so much. There's so many things they liked about it, and I may do like an intro talking about other aspects of it. And I know that one of the things that I liked was like the diversity in the show, just showing so many different types of people who are in Golden, and also the buyer side, the seller side, different areas of the world, traveling on to all different continents and all that. And so I want to say, I mean, this is like jokingly, but also seriously, like my kids love the show due to like whenever they would show the sibling rivalry between the Mannings, Peyton and Eli, it was just so funny. And I didn't know he was a producer on the show, Peyton was. So that's really cool. Um, but let's talk about if it's okay with you. Again, I don't know what you're able to talk about and not able to talk about because we didn't talk about it beforehand, but how was it filming on the show?
It was amazing, and quite frankly, I did sign an NDA about certain aspects of it. I couldn't tell you what that NDA has in it or had in
Hmm.
it. So
Hmm.
if I speak at a school, I guess someone will be reaching out to me. But I'm not going to be giving away any secret sauce, right? But
Good.
being on the show was a really cool experience. They
Hmm.
were, all the folks involved, whether was Golden or the production teams. And like you said, I didn't know all of the individuals that were involved on the back end of it, as far as
Hmm.
investors, producers, etc. But really a great team to work with. They had us pretty much in and out of there in half a day. Really took care of us. So the overall experience was great. I think the hardest part was waiting to see when it was going to come out, right?
Yeah.
And I had no idea what else was going to be in the show, right? And that's what I found to be really the coolest part of the show. Like you said, it touched so many different collectibles, so many different parts of the world. So I think it turned out to be an unbelievable show that really had something for everybody.
No, absolutely. That's a great way to put it. That's something for everyone. They wanted to pull in, I mean, either intentionally or unintentionally, they pulled in people who are not in the hobby. People, again, I think it was really smart, again, whether it's intentional or unintentional, to have, the music items, the Jimi Hendrix thing, the Britney Spears thing, like these items that people are like, Madonna, just
Yeah.
wow. Like my wife was like, she's on her phone and I'm watching it with my older son, and she's like, oh, that's neat, that's cool, I wonder how much that is. And then of course my kids are, after that show, are just walking around the house or talking about my cards, like how much is that, how much is that, how much is that. And it's like, there's an intrinsic value. I would just tell
Right.
them like, yes, there's the appraisal value, but then there's the value that someone can emotionally have. And I told them, there are some cards that are worth not much in Dad's collection, but I wouldn't sell them for anything because they mean so much to me. So, but no, that's great. It's so when it comes to the show, you said like a half day shooting. You didn't know what you were going to be, what was going to be edited out, right? Like you had no clue like what they were going to use and not use, right? So,
And not at all. And it really wasn't scripted at
mhm,
all,
mhm.
right? Maybe there were a couple instances where, they'd give us some direction on, hey, here's what we're teeing up and give your natural responses. Not a lot of, retakes or anything along those lines. So it was pretty much off the cuff, which was nerve wracking, but at the same time, pretty cool and exciting.
That is so awesome. Do you remember? Okay, so you're in New York. Can you just walk me through like just the day of the shooting? Again, not asking for uh, any secret sauce here, but like you didn't have to say fly across the country. You drove from Westchester to Jersey, like 2-3 hours. I mean, I'm adding in traffic, y'all, because I know New Jersey and New York right next to each other, but believe me, it is not like a skip in the park if it's especially if it's rush hour. But I mean, tell me, like, yeah, like, did you Uber there? Did they have a car service come to you? Did you drive there?
Yeah, they offered, to do basically anything we wanted, right? I said, "Hey, I'm going to get in my car. I'll drive to Philly from New York. No big deal." They had
Oh,
us come
cool.
in the day before, ultimately put us up in a hotel, and then picked us up the next day at the hotel. And they ultimately ended up flying in Cop and King Mitts from other locations, right, based upon
Hmm.
where they are. But yeah, it was first class. They took care of us, all around.
That's so awesome. So you said Philly. I thought the warehouse or golden headquarters was in Jersey or something like that. Am I not?
May- Maybe they want people to think that, but let's put it this way, where we shot was in Philly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. I won't tread any further. I don't want to get you in trouble.
No,
But
all good.
no, but I mean, I could be misremembering too. I mean, I watched it. I mean, I watched your episode a couple of times because I wanted to like study it and learn. But it went by so quick. I mean, it was almost like people uh analogized it to like Pawn Stars or these other shows with appraisal values. But I mean, I enjoyed it so much, and my family really did too. And when it comes to those other shows that do appraisal, like Antique Roadshow, I mean, those are like series that go on forever. And this one, it was 6 episodes. It was gone. It was like blink my eyes, and it was over. And I was like, I want more. Give me more.
I agree. I hope that Ken Golden and team get a second season out of it. I mean, they certainly have plenty of content to provide, right? So I could definitely see that happening. The only downside from the show is that they showed my bald spot too much when I kept like bending over. So I'm gonna have to I have to have words with some people about that, but a little bit too
Oh,
late.
oh my goodness. Well, I did not notice that. I really haven't.
There
But
you
it,
go.
it's it, it's so much like when I create content, it's like I don't like the sound of my voice. I don't like this. I don't like this. Like even right now, like I'm like, yeah, I could have probably. Well, I will say I shaved. I shaved for today. In today's episode, I shaved. I did not. I did not shave my face for. I think maybe. Well, it's like the day after Father's Day. I was like kind of like just really enjoying my day, and I didn't go about doing it. But yes, I can get very self conscious too. It's probably why I have a tendency to clap back at trolls on the internet because I'm just like, hey, you know what? Like I will fight back. Um, which people have told me not to do, but it's like it's not professional. It's all for fun anyway. But no, I know what you mean, but I did not notice it. Like I said, my wife was like, he is sharply dressed and he looks so professional. And I mean, I think at that point I had already watched it once, but then the second time, and I was almost like taking notes on my notes app on my phone while I'm watching the show, and I was like, all right, wife says sharply dressed man, so I got so nothing to take away from the other two, King Mitts and Cop, but yeah. So you were in that office. I think maybe I can't remember exactly how much screen time of the office time, because they had the in the moment where they talk to you guys separately, but it seemed like you guys were in that office for about airtime wise, somewhere between like 2 to 3 minutes. But you guys shot more than that, right?
We did, and they did other pieces of content that they used for
Mm.
social media, not just for the Netflix filming, right? So we spent a decent amount of time doing that as well. We actually got to interact with some other folks who are going to be on the show. I don't know if you saw the
Oh,
episode with the young teenager who
so
pulled
funny.
the Lewis Hamilton
Oh, Lewis Hamilton,
move practice.
yes,
So
yes,
I have a pretty cool picture of the three of us with the LeBron triple logoman, and he and his father with the Lewis Hamilton. Which, I mean, talk about life changing for that kid as a teenager.
yeah.
$40 in a pack and selling it for who knows what the final amount was. It wasn't disclosed, but it
That's
was.
right.
I'm sure it was close to $1 million. So
Right. So the five of you and those two cards all in one photo.
yeah, it's awesome.
And
It's a
you did
cool
not
thing.
post this on Insta are you allowed to post about it? Like, can you share it with me offline? Like, I would love that's like, I mean, already each card alone is like, over $1 million, but to combine those two and the sellers of the cards, that's gotta be such an amazing photo.
I'll send it to you. I didn't want to post on social media because I didn't get a chance to, with the kid who was still a teenager, I didn't want to go about
Sure.
doing that. But the reality is, I mean, the cool part about the picture, not only is it the five of us, the two gentlemen who bought the Lewis Hamilton card are in the picture as well. So that deal went down like that day in their office, which was really cool. And to see those two cards together was really cool. We held the Lewis Hamilton card, and the kid held the LeBron triple logo man in the picture.
Oh, that's so
Swap.
cool.
Yeah,
Yes. Give each other a chance to hold the Grail card or the life-changing card. Is
absolutely.
that's such an awesome like idea for you guys to do that for each other. That's so cool.
It was great.
Um did you, I mean, I just, again, I'm off the rails here. I'm not even looking at my questions anymore because I wanted to ask you, were you kind of like me during the pandemic where, well, I mean, we're all getting stir crazy, but like, did you get into Drive to Survive? Yeah, I think it was called Netflix, Drive to Survive, the Formula One show on Netflix. Did you get into that?
I haven't seen it yet. I've heard amazing things about it, and it's on my list. Definitely
Mhm.
need to watch it.
Yeah, I gotta say, I wish that it was more kid friendly so I could watch it with my kids because there's a lot of cursing. But I mean, my son, it's so wild. I mean, he loves to like I'm not a car person, I'm a cards person, but he'll ask me like, what is this logo of the card? Which one is that? Oh, that's like he wants to know, are these cards domestic or international? And like he just like wants to learn. I guess, he's 10 years old, they just want to learn the world. So maybe it's just it could be anything, but it's a while that he's so into cars and I'm like, he's into cards too, but I'm like, hey, I can't really bond with you on cars. I mean, I can because I drive one, but like I don't love cars. But hey, you wanna do cards with me? Like you want
Right.
to I'll because he loves Jason Tatum too, and he loves the Celtics, even though I'm not trying to push him towards the Wizards because that's our home team, but I don't know how, but he found this one Larry Bird highlight reel, and it's just, I mean, you and I know just how amazing. I mean, not even just a shooter. He was so tough,
Yes.
right? I mean, he was just so tough, and his passing and his grit and like even the way he hurt his back and he ended his career with like mowing his own lawn. It just sounds so wild. Like that just can't happen in today's NBA. But for him to fall in love with Larry Bird and Jason Tatum is just so wild to me because I had nothing to do with it.
It is amazing, right? And that's the beauty of YouTube, the internet, etc.
Hmm.
You can go back and you could find the content, and I still find myself going back and watching it, and just remember as a kid,
Yeah.
like either watching the games or I remember I can't remember the name of the VHS tape, but it was basically a Michael Jordan tape that had like his story and all his highlights. I must have watched that thing like 150 times before I played basketball. It was like, man, it was so great.
Oh, well, okay, you opened a door. I gotta ask. So you've played basketball. How far into the competitiveness did you go?
Yeah, I mean, up till college, and that's all I did. Pretty much played basketball. I wasn't
Yeah.
a great, baseball player. Certainly was too small to play football, and didn't really. I wish I had the opportunity to play lacrosse because I love the sport now, but
Mm.
never got into that. But yeah, basketball has always been my sport. And now that I get hurt every time I touch a basketball, I transition to golf. Now that I'm 48 years old, so
Oh my goodness. So what was your position though on the court?
point guard.
Point guard. Okay, gotcha. So I mean, the number of point guards coming out of the New York, you know, street ball scene. I'm thinking about Lance Stevenson, Stephen Marbury, I think maybe Ray Alston, Skip to My Lou, but
Yeah,
maybe but like I always said, and again, I'm gonna harken back to an older episode. One of my very first, which is I guess not even a month ago, but it just seems so surreal how much time has flown by. But I used to always tell folks that I was never a good shooter because I grew up playing basketball in New York on the street, like street ball
yeah.
on the blacktop. Because of the elements, the wind. Like no one was a good shooter. Even those three players, as I mentioned, they're so good at driving to the basket. They're so good with their handles. Not that I'm so good with my handles, but they would get to the rim and finish there instead of shooting. Like it wasn't like Steph Curry in a growing up with his dad, Del Curry, in an air conditioned indoor court where you could just shoot over and over and practice your shot. Kids in New York City, like we're outside and literally the wind will affect your shot. And right, I mean, help me out here. Back me up.
No, no, you're spot on. I mean, one of my favorite basketball players was Kenny Anderson,
Ah,
right?
yeah.
And he was an unbelievable point guard, right? Went to Georgia Tech, and then ultimately went pro. But you're right. And the game has changed so much now. I mean, that's
Mhm.
why I get frustrated with the NBA now, because it is like a 3-point shooting contest
Yeah.
almost every game, right?
Right.
It's completely different. But I agree with you, man. There's and I was a huge Syracuse fan, and like Sherman Douglas was
Oh, the
like,
general.
I mean, he was to me like the greatest thing ever, right? But
Yeah.
point guards were a lot different back then.
So these folks you just mentioned have got to be some of the cheapest people to PC. Like they don't
Oh
have.
yeah,
I mean, maybe they're star rubies, right? But like we're talking people who did not get past like the junk wax era 1.0 or whatever you want to call it.
agreed.
So, do you PC those folks too? Then
You,
maybe.
you know what? I can't say that I do, but if I came across a car, I would definitely scoop it up. But I'm not actively out there looking for them.
Yeah, I imagine if you saw come across your. Actually, let me ask you: do you go to local car shows in your area?
I do. I do. The one, old school guy that I do PC, and it was just, listen, I'm a Caucasian male, and I thought it was amazing that like Rex Chapman was like one of the greatest dunkers of all time.
That's
And
right.
he was the guy that I would go around and try and find his card. So I used to have, I still have a couple of his, but yeah, he was my guy for a while too.
I think University of Kentucky, right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and then there was like Brent Barry who won a dunk contest doing the
Right.
free throw dunk. Like, oh my gosh, remember a guy? I mean, the Barry family was very good in general, but
Yeah, it was like that when the Charlotte Hornets became that expansion team and they had like J.R. Reed, Rex Chapman, like they were a fun, exciting team when they first started, and then Larry Johnson went there. It was like, I don't know, I love those teams.
oh my gosh, Grandmama,
Yeah,
just
correct.
that Larry Johnson. It's really interesting because well, he was a Nick, right? The 4-point play against the Pacers. I mean, I very much remember
He
that.
was he and Charles Oakley were just I mean, that's when basketball, you'd like, clothesline people when they came down the lane, which those were the days.
And I'm sorry, maybe it wasn't the Pacers, but I remember it was the most famous 4-point play, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
I remember where he shot it. It's my favorite spot in NBA Jam. It's like that furthest from the screen, like at the top of the near the scores table type of thing,
That's
NBA
right.
Jam. But no, that's so funny. I did not anticipate we are going to go down the '90s rabbit hole, but hey, I love doing that. It's just so. I mean, that's why I do this. It's about the nostalgia. So what I was going to say is, if you saw a Kenny Anderson Star Rubies in one of your dealers in your local shop, you're picking that up. I mean, you may negotiate a little bit, but that's getting scooped up that day.
If I saw it, I would certainly
Yeah.
be attempting to get it.
Yeah, and I don't even know if they. I think he has to have one. I mean, again, I haven't checked I don't know the whole checklist, but I feel like maybe Sherman Douglas wouldn't. But then I could be wrong about that as well. But I mean, Kenny Anderson was definitely. I mean, him and Derek Coleman,
Oh yeah.
beloved. The Nets. I mean, just the old classic Nets. Let me say my biggest pull of my life for myself, because the Desmond Ritter. That's like the biggest pull that that I've had in my hands. But I actually pack pulled a 2007 2008 Upper Deck Artifacts Jason Kidd neck emblem. So actually, we're talking about triple logo man, and I'm actually writing a piece for a magazine about logo men versus like neck emblems. Because if you're a huge fan of a team, I mean, yeah, logo mans are awesome and NFL shields are cool, but wouldn't you want a game used logo of your team? So this was back when Jason Kidd was on the Nets. So on that checklist, I think it was the three players they had were Vince Carter, Richard Jefferson, and Jason Kidd. And I pulled, I don't even know, it's definitely not even a case hit. It's like multiple case hits.
Oh yeah.
It was a 1-of-1 neck emblem. Like, so picture the Nets logo on Jason Kidd's jersey,
Right.
right? And I pulled that and I sold it for like $200. Like, now it's like a several $1,000 card. But of course, back then I sold it to some supposed super collector of Jason Kidd, who later I found out sold it during the pandemic because you could track it on eBay sales, but apparently
Right.
it transacted. He told me he would keep it forever and all this stuff when he was trying to buy it off me. So it happens.
Oh yeah.
Not the windfall of a triple logo man of a LeBron, but
We've all got
man,
those stories, though. I have
we
plenty of
sure do.
cards that, oh man, I wish I still had. I actually had the whole 1986 Fleer basketball set and a PSA 9, like probably in 1999, 2000, and I sold it.
Wow.
I sold it in like 2003 when I bought a house for
Guy,
nothing.
good
For compared
reason.
to what it is now, absurd.
I've heard some people actually sell that as a set. Like, it's almost like the whole set minus Jordan. Like,
Right,
it's almost like you have to disassociate that one card from the rest of the set. But you
right.
had the entire set together and sold the entire set.
And the stickers too, which
And
is it was painful. Now that
oh,
I think about it, it's extremely painful.
I don't want you to. I, I didn't bring you on to have you have super regret and super painful moments,
No,
but
not at all.
I do appreciate the vulnerability. I don't want to end on that note. I feel like I need to like rinse this out with one more topic before I let you go, because I don't want to end on this. Um, so I've asked you about your highs. I mean, that is a low, I guess. I mean, but you sold it for a good reason. You got a house, right? I mean, it went towards the funds for the house you currently live in, or previous house.
Yep. In '03.
There you go. I mean,
Yep.
20 years in the house. You got. I mean, I don't know. Some people pay off their mortgages earlier, but you're more than halfway to the end of your mortgage with that. I mean,
Right.
I'm like still in the first half of ours, and I don't remember. Like, I was not into cards when we were actually we I was. It was 2012. So I think you and I are both going to national, separately. But I'm looking forward to meeting you. I believe you're going,
Absolutely.
right. 2000, it won't be my first national. I went 2012. It was in Baltimore at that time, and my older son was born at the end of 2012, and so this national was July or August of that year, and I was collecting at that time. But I think as soon as my firstborn was born, I just kind of shut it down. I think, and I wasn't even asked to by my wife or anyone. I think I just more power to the people who have young families who are in the hobby. But I
Right.
think my capacity, I just knew I couldn't. It wasn't even a financial thing. It was like podcast, like all the things I'm doing now. I just don't think I would have been able to do back then. But no, I just I love. I mean, those stories. I mean, that's why we do all this, right? I mean, and you seem like
Absolutely.
you're clearly a person who remembers the old school basketball and reveres it and that nostalgia. I mean, I just love. I love it. I absolutely love it.
Me too. It's I could talk basketball all day. So,
We're definitely gonna have to offline, and we'll definitely talk about our national. We're not gonna hit the courts though, right? I mean, my knees and my back are so messed up that
yeah, I
um
every time I play, I end up hurting something. Recently, it was like a partial strain of my Achilles. So I'm like, all right, I just it's not
oh
worth it at this point.
yeah. I think that Steve Nash actually near the end of his career, and he had back issues and like a bunch of things, but he I think he said something about like if he could just play like once a week, like if he could, like the body recovering, right? I mean, you and I know
Yeah.
this very well. Like weekend warriors, you do something, you're just so sore for several days. And I think for Steve Nash, he was kind of like, I can play at a high level like occasionally, but if you are on the NBA grind and you got to play like back to backs or 3 games in 4 nights or 5 nights, he was just like, I can't do it because it's the wear and tear. And so for us, older folks, it's like it's hard to sustain. I think it's and I guess that's why people get into golf. It's just less. Although there's a lot of torque with the swings. I don't know. You tell me how like golf.
Golf is terrible for your back. That's for sure. But yeah, well, that's why it amazes me someone like a LeBron or a Tom Brady who can play that long, right? Now, granted, the NBA is totally different now, right? A lot of these guys
Mhm.
don't play back to backs. There's time management, all
Yeah,
that stuff. But at the end of the day, to be that age and to play at that level it's unbelievable.
it really is. It's very admirable. I mean, all these big the records where it's longevity, right? I mean, you can be. I mean, not that anyone young can just do, just destroy the world, but Derrick Rose. I mean, he was the
Yeah,
youngest MVP, and we're literally talking about someone who is going to be a asterisk in the NBA history where he's going to be the very likely. And I didn't want this to become like a whole like let's talk. We're talking like old. I can't stop talking to Jason, but I know we have to end soon. But he is going to go down in history as the only MVP to not make the Hall of Fame. I think that's going to happen unless I mean I don't know what could he do to make the Hall, but he won the MVP. He's the youngest ever. That's already a huge accolade, but he's not going to make the Hall. Like that's just really sad.
it's extremely sad. And what an unbelievable. I was actually recently watching highlights of his MVP year, and I think it was Joakim Noah was talking about
Yeah.
like they were on the verge of that playoff run. They were going to be
Hmm.
dangerous. I feel terrible for that guy. And
Yeah.
you're right. It's what a superstar athlete.
Right.
Crazy.
Him. Yeah. Bo Jackson. Just well, Zion had his own stuff, but basically like the longevity. I mean, really, it's so impressive.
It
It's
is.
so absolutely impressive to continue to do that. So
Yeah.
So we'll see. Jason, it was just an absolute pleasure to have this chat with you. The time I say this with every guest, but it's so true. The time just flies by,
Agreed.
and if other podcasters and content creators are listening, I mean, honestly, they would be wise to reach out to you and have them on your pod to talk about what we talked about, but maybe different spins or angles. But I wish you nothing but the best. And oh my gosh, a little bit over a month, we'll meet up in Chicago, and just have a great time. So thank you again. Oh, I gotta ask you one last thing. Are you getting your own room or are you crashing with a buddy? Because apparently that's like the big thing people are talking about nowadays.
It's funny you bring that up. I had booked a room like because I went to AC last year,
Hmm.
right, for the national. And I remember what a challenge that was getting a room so late in the game. So I booked my room probably 3, 4 months ago
Mm.
and didn't have an issue, right? But now it seems like that's becoming a major challenge. So to answer the question, I will be staying solo. And
Good.
I snore a lot, so that's of the benefit of anybody that would be staying with me. So
Oh my, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I'm gonna whoever is listening this far in, I have to debate whether I'm going to bring my CPAP machine or bring more cards. That is what happens when you're this old or like this out of shape. Or actually, there's a lot of men who have sleep apnea more than women. But yeah, maybe I'll make some content around that. Like just see survive. Like
like the
actually,
geese.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Or maybe I put some slabs into my CPAP machine to like
There you
almost
go.
like you compact, you put like socks in, like crevices of your luggage. Oh my
I'm
gosh.
sure TSA would love that. They would. They'd have a lot of questions for you. It's amazing.
Oh my goodness. Jason, this has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. Wishing you the absolute best with breaks, with being in the hobby. And I really look forward to meeting you in a little bit over a month here. And just thank you so much for agreeing to be on the podcast.
Denny, thank you, man. It's I know we went back and forth for a little while. It's been fantastic, and really appreciate that your kids took the time to come up with some questions, and your wife was so kind making the comments that she did. So really appreciate it. Wish you nothing but the best, and I can't wait for us to hang in what is it, 6 weeks, something like that, 5 weeks.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Take care. Have a good evening.
You got it. Thanks, Denny.